Hello, it's Dr. Rosie Kuhn, but you already know that. Um, it's almost 5 o'clock. It's kind of funny talking because nobody's in the room yet, but I'm here and getting things set up. I'll wait a few more seconds before I start. Let me do this. Okay, we'll just go with that. Okay, I see two people are here. If you would say hello in the chat so I can see who's here, and that would be great to see you. So as I said, this is Dr. Rosie Kuhn, but you knew that. I'm nervous. So when I'm nervous, I have to kind of say things. I wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, starting April 1st will be our next live Thursday, April 1st, we'll be going to 3:30 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time. So we've been 5 o'clock, and due to a number of situations, we're going to change that to 3:30. So these will be recorded. So if you can't make it, I hope you can, but if you can't make it, I'll look forward to offering these as recorded videos so that you'll see them there. And you'll have them available to you. So we're moving from 5 o'clock to 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. So that's one thing. I wanted to mention also that this is going to be on it. This always plays on the playlist of spiritual dilemmas, and what it will also, what I want to say is that I have other playlists that you might be interested in. One particular playlist that I think is really cool is called Dilemmas of a Small Business Guru. And what it is the playlist is about almost 20 different people that I interview individually for about an hour long. And we talk about what it's like for them to be in small business, own their own business, most of them. And some of them are artists, and some of them work in LA in the entertainment business, or they have their own business production kind of thing, coaches, all kinds of people, marketing. And we talk about those dilemmas where it's like, here's the human element, but here's the part that wants to get famous or get a lot of money, those kinds of more egotistical kinds of focuses. And so we have these dilemmas. And so that particular playlist, the Dilemmas of a Small Business Guru, might be something that you would find interesting. There's also Diet Like a Guru podcasts or videos, and Parent Like a Guru. So lots of different elements talking about this inner guru part of us, each and every one of us that has this inner guru, this inner wisdom that we can always turn to and learn to listen to greater and greater degrees. Hi, Marge Frankie. It's nice to see you. Anyone else out there that would like to say hello in the chat? It would be great to see who's here. If you can, that would be awesome. I also want to say that if you haven't already, please like and subscribe so that I know that you're here and that what I'm sharing is of value to you. And also, here we're using the chat for questions, but if you are watching this later, please leave a comment below. Leave comments about what it is you'd like me to talk about, or what you'd like to hear. What questions are you dealing with that may be really challenging and holding you up in terms of you evolving as your human spiritual person? So please do that. Please leave a comments, and that would be really helpful to me to see what it is that you might be challenged by or struggling with, or that are your dilemmas. And so that I can be more connected to you in that way and answer those for you. So tonight, before I go there, I want to say that the intention of these live videos is so that you and I can have these great conversations about things that people don't usually talk about. And here we can talk about these things. And what I mean is that few people really talk about the spiritual elements of their life and how they're being with them. What are the dilemmas that we're facing? Like the struggles, the challenges. And we'll talk about some of those tonight. But very few places are we able to have these conversations. A niece of mine, when I asked her, I said, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to be doing these videos and live vlogs on YouTube about spirituality. And she goes, oh, I'm not that spiritual. And she said, my friends, we don't talk about spirituality because a couple of the people in our group are atheists. So we don't talk about spirituality. And it's like, wow, there's a whole amazing conversation that could be had, not about right or wrong, or good or bad, but just like, wow, isn't that interesting that you see the world from a place of no God? And wow, you see the world from, wow, there is a God, or there is this element of divinity or sacredness or something in life. We could have a wonderful conversation about that with people, but we don't, because it's almost like politics and religion. It is religion that we don't talk about those things that that are part of our everyday life. So this is one place, this little platform with me today, where we can have these conversations and discuss the things that are like, yeah, how do you do that spiritual thing when you're like actually a human being? And how do you do this human thing when you're like this ego thing? And like, how do you know? What do you do? So that's what this is about, is so that we can have these conversations in general. Hi, Alicia. Welcome. And welcome, Fred, too. So tonight, the intention of this conversation, it's called Spirituality is Highly Pragmatic, Rational, and Logical. The intention of this is to look at how people generally see spirituality and how to maybe shift some of the perspectives, interpretations we might even have, so that we're able to work with this thing called spirituality or spirit or ourselves in a way that makes more sense. So this fellow named Nisargadatta was this man, I think he's in India, where when he was like 40 years old, he had this awakening. He just had an awakening, where most of us have to progress at a very slow level. This guy went boom, he was in it. David's here. Hi, David. Nice to see you. So Nisargadatta wrote this book called I Am That. And he just distinguishes the thatness of us, that divine self that we are. In the Christian language, we might call it the Christ consciousness, but this divinity that we are. And he talks about it, that's what we are. And the rest of it, we're not. And that's part of that confusion of, well, what am I if I'm this, but I'm in this body and I look like this and I'm saying this. But that's part of what his book is about, is I am that. And one of the chapters was called The Pragmatics of Spirituality. And I just love that, because the thing that's true about me is one of the things I love about being a transformational life coach and coaching in particularly, is it's pragmatic. And I trained coaches and I still train coaches. So 20 years of training people to be coaches from a pragmatic perspective, from a perspective of how do you do it and what do you do? Hello, Ash. Nice to see you. So the pragmatic, oh, Aisha, hi. Nice to see you. The pragmatics is, here's the definition that I found on the web. Pragmatics means it's dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. So the pragmatics is like, how do we see things from a perspective of practicality? How do we actually do life? How do we do spirituality? How do we do this thing of being be both and all of it at the same time. Hello, Nars. It's nice to see you. Now, some of you are new, so if I'm saying your name right, that's great, Nars. But if I don't, please let me know how to say it if you can. That would be awesome. So thanks and welcome, you guys. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. So a lot of people see spirituality, and those of us who have been in religions, there's the thanks. That's Nars is correct. Thanks so much. We're religion, in a sense, and a lot of spirituality is about theoretical perspectives. There's the parables and the stories. It's all of the theories of how things should be or how things are, but it doesn't give us much practicality. It doesn't give us like, well, how do you do that? How do you be actually spiritual? How do you do that? And again, I was beginning to say that as a transformational coach, I really help people take their perspectives and their interpretations and their wants and their desires and practically and sensibly create practices and ways of doing things, exercising the muscles so that they are creating the life that they want, that they're actually able to manifest what they say they want. So the practicality of things is very important. I wrote down here, if things don't make sense to us, we don't act on it. So quite often people will say, hey, I really want to kind of cultivate a spiritual perspective with myself. I really want to know what that's about, but it's so woo-woo, and there's so much woo-woo-ness about it. There's no sensibility for some people. And so that really gets in the way. So tonight I really wanted to address some of those elements of this construct, if you will, of spirituality, and say, what are the pragmatics here? Where can we find practicality? Where can it make sense in our lives versus here's this theory of how you should be and you should pray to and how you should pray and all of those things, but really not bringing it into the personal experience of me trying to learn how to do this, trying to develop or cultivate a sense of connection with the oneness that I am, the one. And I just had a thought. That's why I got a little distracted there. And what I mean by that is, in the last few lives, I've been talking about, this process of cultivating spirituality begins with the me that I think I am, with the me who's I have some higher wisdom inside. And by doing that, I start to be able to differentiate the sort of the little me, or the more egoic me, or the afraid me, from the me that's not so afraid. And as I do that, I have greater and greater degrees of listening. And as I have greater and greater degrees of listening, I'm hearing things and hearing people, or sensing things, or experiencing life differently. And as I'm beginning to experience this, I begin to build a inventory of evidence that says, wow, this is here. This higher, this moreness of life is in multi dimensions, is here, and I'm beginning to engage with that. So, in terms of the basics of spiritual development, those are all really important parts. And no matter where we are on the journey, we still always come back to these challenges, because we're never the same. I'm now almost 69 years old. So who I was in my 40s and the dilemmas and challenges I was having at that age is different than the challenges I'm having at this age. So I'm never not challenged by what I'm facing in my human experience. And so I'm always cultivating another element, or cultivating greater degrees of awareness, or greater expanded sense of self in relation to what I'm considering divinity. So for me, there's a lot of practicalities in that, as opposed to it's just theory. So I'd love to hear from you guys about what I'm saying, and does it make sense to, as a beginning, to say, does this make sense of what I'm saying? Um, and is this worthy of a conversation? So I'd love to have some comments from you about what you're hearing and listening to, and what questions might be coming up about that. One of the things that I want to come back to, this sense of that most people think of spirituality as being woo-woo, and that there's nothing practical about it. I have found that as I go into these conversations with myself, and as I become more connected to the evidence of myself as a divine being, and the evidence of that there are beings around me all the time that are guiding and protecting me, and the more that I am aware of that, then I can utilize that to keep me in alignment with my truth and my knowing. So what I want to say about that is that quite often I'll be talking to people, and they're in the challenges and they're in the throes. They might be breaking up with a boyfriend, or they're thinking about quitting their job. They don't know where the money is going to come from. All of those kinds of dilemmas. And when I ask the question, what is your knowing? What is it that you know? There's a quieting down. There's a quality of calm that shows up. And it's like, what I know is I'm taken care of. What I know is this is all going to work out okay. What I know is I'm divinely led. So it's fascinating time and time again to be talking to people, and they're frantic and they're anxious and they're worried and they're scared. But when I ask the question, what do you know? They calm down and they go into a place of, I know this. And in that knowing, then it's highly pragmatic in the sense that they know now this, and there's a sensibility about that. And in that sensibility, they are now able to maybe act differently, act according to their knowing versus acting according to what should I do and how often should I do this and where should I go and should I get this and should I do that. It's like there's this calming down. And in that is the practicality of, so what's next from this place of knowing? It sounds so simple, and it is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple because we've been trained over and over and over again. In the book Four Agreements, they talk about us being domesticated. We've been domesticated to go into fear and go into struggle, and this is hard, and I don't know how, and all of that construct of our consensus reality. And if we've been trained to do that, and so it's very challenging for us to go, that's the practical. Let's talk about how to separate from my boyfriend and where do I go and how. Let's talk about the how-tos of that, as opposed to going, let's start with this place of calm. Let's start with this place of, this is what I know. This is what I know. And it's an interesting process, but that's the difference that I'm talking about. That's what I want us to know about, is this. I know this, and I know it. And nothing else matters in those moments. Nothing else matters. Marge says, explain how a mundane chore like doing the dishes or cleaning a closet can be spiritual. That's a great question. We think of spiritual is I have to be meditating, or I have to be praying in a sacred environment, or I have to go to church, or I have to read the Bible. Those kinds of very constructed spiritual devices, for a lack of a better word. So that is usually how we see spiritual. But when we are in our knowing, when we're in a sense of, oh, this is what brings me, when I can practice being myself completely in the moment, present to myself, present to the task at hand, There's a knowing that the world is taken care of. This is that place of knowing. I can do the dishes. I can be present to the dishes. I can be present to, um, scraping or cleaning potatoes. I can be present to cleaning the closet and know, I have knowing that it's all good. Quite often people have stuff and keep stuff because there's a fear. There's a fear that they'll lose something. There'll be something that they will not have access to if they let that stuff go. And if we just, again, come back to, and I'm being very simplistic in this moment, because we only have an hour to talk about this, but from that place of like, what do you know when you are in that place of letting go of stuff? In fact, Marge, if you want to, you can offer that up to us, if you will, to say, here's what I know about letting go of stuff. Or when I'm doing the dishes, I feel uplifted. I feel a sense of not only accomplishment in doing the dishes, getting them done, but I'm in a state of presence with the warm water and the soap and looking out the window and seeing trees or birds or whatever it is that you're seeing, that connection that you're having in the presence. And a lot gets accomplished in this place, not only in terms of chores, but in terms of the space that is open for creative ideas, creative thoughts, insight, that place where divine wisdom can come through us because we're open. We're just present in the moment. Einstein and so many other inventors and philosophers, people who have created important elements to life, which is just about everything. A lot of their most amazing thoughts came when they're in doing the most simplistic moments of presence, or in a nap or something. But it's in that place of state of consciousness, of that place of knowing. They can let go of everything else. This is a struggle in a sense. This can be very pragmatic if you think about it, as doing the dishes and being present. Or I've heard a lot of people who say, I just love peeling potatoes because it's so calming. Marge says, I feel a sense of peace when I can focus on chores that keeps my hands busy. Yeah, there's a sense of peace that comes through. And in that peace, when we're in that peace or upliftedness or that place of connection, we're actually in a different frequency. We're in a different resonance. We bring a sense of the word uplifting comes up, so that our vibration is higher and we're attuned in the world differently. So the way that we respond to the world, the way we respond to other people can shift from being grumpy or being unconnected, disconnected, to all of a sudden being open and available to others and to ourselves. And that's a very intimate time. Doing dishes by yourself can be a very intimate and high quality time, as can be anything else. Bookkeeping, or the tasks that must get done, but that we attend to from a place of frustration, or I don't know how to do this, it's too much, I don't want to do it. From that to, okay, I'm going to be present with this. Or doing taxes. This is tax time, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm going to get this job done. I'm going to be here, present, and focused. And that's very pragmatic, as opposed to what becomes unpragmatic or unuseful is distracting ourselves with the frustration and the blaming and the upset with the government because you have to do taxes, or whatever it is that keeps you from just being in the state of calm. And this is what I know. What I know is I got to get my taxes done, and I'm going to sit here and take care of what needs to get done, so they're done. And there's that sense of connection and completeness. One of the most pragmatic thoughts that, I don't know if it's a phrase or whatever, but I think it's so pragmatic. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activity is the same, but what we bring to it is different. And if you want to bring frustration and fear and hardship to things, you can do that. We all can do that. I'm very good at doing that. I am not a good washing person. I got stuff around washing dishes. But more and more, I'm able to bring myself to this place of when my dishes are done and my little place is clean, I feel more calm, and that brings about a better quality of life for me. And that's what I want, is a better quality for my life, which bleeds through and moves through in terms of who I connect with through my day, whether it's my friends or my dog or my clients or you. It all extends in that way. David says, I think that continuous prayer is those chores to keeping our spiritual temple clean, being centered in each moment. Yes, thank you for that. That continuous prayer are those chores that are part of our spiritual temple. I think that's beautifully put. Thank you. And Marge says it's much better than trying to multitask. When we're multitasking, we're not focused and clear. We have an intention. And this is an element of spirituality that's pretty interesting in terms of what's the intention of the practice. What's the intention of cultivating spirituality? That's the question. What's the point? And most people will not begin that process until they're suffering, hurting, perhaps suffering with a disease or something, or loss, where they just don't know where else to turn. Their sense of control, their sense of their ability to control things is just they're at a loss. And so they begin to turn to something else. Most of us, and I appreciate those of you who are here and will be watching this, is like you're interested in this a little bit differently. It's like there's more here than just save me from myself, or give me what I need so that I'm not going to suffer anymore. There's something else that starts to become true, and it draws us. The more that we practice, or the more that we're tending to these things, the more, for me, the more pragmatic it becomes. And like David's saying, it's like there's a sense of the more that I do my dishes and feel the wonder of that and the awness of that, the more I do dishes. The more that I practice staying in alignment with myself, the more that I do that, because it's effective. The evidence is I am more myself when I'm doing that. And being able to find that more and more, to discover that for ourselves more and more, that's part of this process. Last week, I had such a good time on the live chat. And I watched some of myself. I mean, mostly I'm looking at the camera, but on occasion I would catch myself and I was having a good time. And it's not like I don't have a good time, but I was actually experiencing myself and watching myself, and it was like on different levels, being able to go, this is what I love to do. This is a wonderful expression of who I am in the world, different than any other way that I am in terms of what I bring or do in the world. And that was a moment to question in a sense, like, wow, that's really interesting. I want to do more of that. I want to be myself in this way more. And that's what I want for every single one of us. That's part of why I'm doing these lives, is to say, hey, do what you love and find that place that brings you joy, whether it's doing the dishes, feeding the birds, keeping fish, the work in the world that you want to do, the way that you serve. Those are all things that I want you to know for yourself, so that you are your fullest expression. And even when it's the hardest part of the task, it's still, there's a sense of truth about that and exploration. So for instance, Marge is talking about, cleaning out closets and stuff. It's like, for a lot of people, that can be very, very difficult work. very difficult practice to let go of things. But to see that from this practice of the pragmatics, and David's saying this too, the pragmatics of life, the pragmatics of spirituality is this is what it is. And it's an everyday occurrence. It's an everyday evolution of our consciousness. It's an everyday element of expressing and being this human being, this humanness, at the same time that we're cultivating this element of ourselves that we call spiritual. I have a new client, and she is been a practitioner in a religion, spiritual tradition, and she's very highly qualified, and yet she has human messiness. And this is true for a lot of people who take the spiritual path and quite often leave behind their human self, their human messiness. They don't want to deal with that. They take we call a spiritual bypass. And that spiritual bypass can be like, okay, I don't need to deal with all that messiness of humanness. I don't have to deal with my past. I don't have to deal with that stuff. I can just bypass it. And that is a form of spiritual practice. And that's not what I'm about, because my experience is that who I am as a human being, I came here to have a human experience. It's like going to Disneyland. I came here to take those rides. And I can at times say, well, no, I'm too grown up for that, or I'm too much of this. But I came here to take those rides. So I came here to experience the fullness of this human experience, which means the fears and the despair and the disconnection and the lostness. Marge Frankie says, I find the attitude I bring to any task can totally shift the energy. When I choose joy rather than resistance, it raises my energy. Now, see, that's when you know that in itself is highly pragmatic, isn't it? She has an experience. She's sharing that with us to say, hey, I find that my attitude, the attitude I bring to a task, can totally shift the energy. And when I choose joy rather than resistance, it changes. That makes sense. And when people can make sense of something, they're willing to practice it. And quite often, so kind of jumping all around, but hopefully, we're getting to, you're getting what I want you to get from this, and you're getting perhaps more. Hi, Alyssa Fezzik, you're here. I forgot what I was going to say with that. Damn it. I'm going to shift for a second to a story, basically, or a sharing, and it has to do with exactly what we're talking about. When my daughter told me, like 10 and a half years ago, that she was pregnant with what will be my grandson, I was thrilled. And because I have been doing therapy and coaching and spiritual work and helping people integrate spirituality in everyday life, I thought, okay, great. I get to help this kid, be spiritual, and I'm going to tell him this and I'm going to tell him that. And I'm going to give him all this information. And then I thought, so this is all me in my thoughts. And I went, well, wait a second. What if what I want to share with my grandson, the theories and the thoughts and the beliefs that I have and the things that I believe are true, what if my daughter and her husband don't want that kind of perspective? What if they want some other perspective? What do they believe? What if they believe something else? And I went, oh my God, like, how am I going to bring spirituality to this child? How am I going to do that if I can't talk it, if I can't tell them things? And so I ended up, as I usually do, writing a book about it called Cultivating Spirituality in Children. And what I realized was that I had to walk my talk. I had to be that person. I had to be it's not even a role model, but be that. Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see. And I had to be that which I want to share and teach. I have to be the teaching, if you will. And in that, there's no words, there's just the being. And so it was really a wonderful moment to say that, because it's cultivating consciousness and cultivating awareness of who I am being that makes a difference in terms of how I share and be in the world, and how that influences, hopefully, perhaps, my daughter and her husband and their son, my grandson. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, is like the pragmatics, like how do we be spiritual? But what does that mean? Is like, how do we be that kindness? How do we bring that resonance of love and joy and openness and caring to support and empower ourselves and others to let go of the suffering that we create, the suffering that may be needless, the suffering that we make up, that we might not need to make up anymore. So Marge says, and to know I have a choice makes it a lot. So Marge is saying that in terms of what she was saying is that when she knows that she can choose joy as opposed to resistance, it raises her energy. And then she said, and to know I have a choice makes it like my superpower. Absolutely. That's how that makes sense. It's like, I'm not feeling joy right now. What's occurring that is not allowing me to feel the joy? And this is the difference between, in a sense, a spiritual bypass to say, oh, I can only feel joy. I can only feel joy. I can only feel joy. To say, oh, I'm not feeling joy right now. Can I raise that vibration to joy right now? Nope. I'm kind of pissed off about something. Or I'm kind of afraid right now. Or I'm kind of, and it might not be a kind of, but that sense of there's something else going on that's not allowing the joy. And then it gets, for me, it's a conversation. These conversations are very pragmatic because we're wanting to make sense of our human experience. Why is this so difficult to be in a human body? Why is this so difficult? Why is it so painful? Why do we create suffering? A friend of mine is dealing with some physical situations, and she's in a lot of pain. But she knows the difference. And I said, I hear that you're in pain, but you're not suffering. And she goes, exactly. So we can work this out. And if we can't work it out with ourselves, there's all kinds of people like all of you that are here today. You're all able and, providing, sharing that support of saying, I can help you with this. I can support you. And we've got coaches and spiritual directors and ministers and therapists and people that can support us when we don't know how to do this for ourselves. We have 12-step programs, not only for substance abuse, but for life situations. Being an adult child. It used to be an adult child of an alcoholic. Now it's just adult children. And there's these dilemmas and dynamics. But my point is there's support for us for those who want to say, okay, I want to do this differently. I want a life that is might be painful, but I'm not suffering in it, or I'm learning to deal with the suffering differently. David says, perhaps it's a personality thing. Simple tasks lead to times of contemplation, whereas some people, perhaps the extrovert personality, prefers distraction from introversion. That's a really good point. The question is, and as a transformational coach, one of the things I ask people is, what is it you want? So if people want distraction, if people want just a distraction and just let me get away from this stuff, that's what they want. And so it's really important, and this is a very pragmatic element of the work that I do as a coach, is to say, what is it that you want? Because people can come in and go, oh my God, my life is a mess, or my God, my closet's a mess, or oh my God, I don't know what to do about this, or oh my God, the the financial situation or the pandemic. Oh my God, oh my God. And it's like, that's true-ish for you. And what is it you want? And that's, to me, a highly pragmatic place to start a conversation with my clients, is to say, what is it you want? And I have to ask myself a lot when I'm like, rah, 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 rah. And it's like, what is it you want? And when I can come back to that question, it's like, what do you know? So when I say, this is what I want, then that's a point of clarity, coming back to that place. So, David, what you're saying is like, it most likely it is a personality thing, it's a strategic element of personalities or patternings that we carry through life when we're little kids. Even when we're in the womb or pre-womb or whatever that is, we are experiencing anxiety. We don't know what that is. We don't know how to deal with it. We just know that what's happening is creating an irritation and a discordance. And that discord is like, how do I stop being in this discord? We're all doing this. This is like part of our human dynamic, is we're in this, we're in these families, and quite often there's discord. And when there's discord, we go, well, wait, how do I get out of this? And so we can cry as babies, or we can laugh and smile and people pick us up, and now, okay, the discord's gone. We learn, or we're fed a bottle and go, oh, the discord's gone. So we learn these things early, these patterns. That's part of that personality thing, David, you bring up. And I think it's really good, is because we're not our personalities. We've taken on a personality quite often, or we've carried it through from past lives, or because of our parents' expectations, or we want approval, we begin to do things, and that becomes automatic. And then that's who we are. But that's only what we've created, so that we don't have to deal with the discord and the dissonance and the irritability, because we don't want to deal with irritability. It's too scary. So for me, this conversation is very pragmatic, even in relation to spirituality, because it's like, how do I find my way out of that? And I say, what do you know? What do you know? And it's like, oh, now it's not always that simple. But even in saying to a person, what do you want? What do you want? That brings them to a conversation that can bring them to their knowing, because we're entering into that relationship of, here's what I want personally, truthfully, beyond the personality, beyond the ego, beyond the messiness. Here's what I want. It's such an intimate moment with my clients when they tell me that. It's such an intimate moment between friends. It's such an intimate moment between husband and wife, or partners, wife and wife, children and parents. What is it you want? That's a very pragmatic question that can be, it's like I said, intimate, and it's vulnerable, and it's raw, and it can be exquisite and challenging and hard at the same time. That's what this is, this human spirit experience that we're having. And so the dilemmas of, how do you do that? You can't do it. Here's another point that's popping up, is we think that if we follow the theories, just know the theories, it's going to work. But we can't do it unless we go in and have the direct experience of either relationship with ourselves, to say, okay, I'm going to do the dishes with joy. I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to have this difficult conversation with my employee, or I'm going to have a kindness moment with somebody that's irritating me. It doesn't matter. It's just that moment of deciding, here's what I want. Here's where I'm going with what I want to bring into the world. So it's all of that, all at the same time. And we think, if we go back to the theory, if you just read my book, right? If you just read the book, you're going to get it. And that's what we think. Just read the book and you're going to get it. And this particular book I talked about last week, Self-Empowerment 101, is, people will say to me, oh my God, you're so much in there. because I ask hundreds and hundreds of coaching questions in it. And and they'll say, I read through it and I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it. I'm going to answer all those questions you asked. And most of them don't. They don't, because we just think that if I read it, it's here. Now I've got the experience. It's going to be simple. And those of us who have children or animals or life, job, house, anything, it's like, oh, I've got it, but now I got to do something with that. Now I have to experience. I got to actually do it. Whether it's, people get dogs and they go, oh my God, I'm just so happy. This is the cutest little dog ever. But then the dog is yet to be trained. And it's like, well, it's keeping me up at night. And it's like all of the things that are part of raising a dog. It's like, now I have to have the direct experience of it. All my readings and watching of the Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan, it goes out the window because I have to have that direct experience with who I am. And I have to do that from my truth, my knowing. And what do I know? I've got tons of books by Cesar Millan, or I've got tons of books by Dr. Rosie Kuhn, but I still have to have the direct experience of living life, either from joy or whatever else it is we want to live from, fear. I lived in fear and have lived in fear and continue to have elements of my life that are fearful. But I have choice now because I look at things from this more practicality perspective versus theory. If I look at the theory and I look at what people are saying and they say, here's the evidence in their life of what this does. And I go, that's interesting. I'm going to take that into consideration. I talk about my fish, my aquariums. I listen to YouTube videos all the time. I'm taking in the information because I'm really excited about it. The same with spiritual information. I used to take a lot of that in and process it, but then it wasn't Deepak Chopra who was right, or, I'm going to listen to this person and listen to this person. It's like an integration of what's true for me. What do I know? And I know that if it works for them, it can work for me, the spiritual. And this is when I was in really tough times, really hard, dark night of the soul kind of thing. And it's like, okay, if other people can find their way out, and they have, then I can find my way out. And then I got real practical about that. Well, here's what I need to do. I need to sit down in the morning. I need to read books that are in a sense pragmatic and clear about what they're telling me. I need to listen. I need to act and practice acting every day. Practice acting every day. And that's a piece that most of us miss, is we don't want to do the practice. We don't want to train ourselves. We don't want to, people will say, I can't get rid of these thoughts. It's like, I know. And you can. It takes training. Yeah, but that's hard work. I can't tell you the number of people that say that's hard. And it's as if being hard is a pragmatic answer to, here's what I want. I want those thoughts to go away. It's hard. So it's like people say that, and it's like that's supposed to like absolve them of responsibility and accountability for doing the work. So that's a really interesting, fun moment when people tell me things that are hard, and that means I don't want to work that hard. It's like, okay, you don't have to work that hard. Either don't do it and live with what you're living with, or let's find a way that can be a little bit more moderate so that you don't have to push yourself so hard. It doesn't have to be painful. You don't have to suffer. It might be painful, but you don't have to suffer. Marge says, again, when I focus only on what I don't want, I'm focusing on my dissatisfaction and unhappiness. What do I want? Genius question, Rosie. Excellent. That can be that introspection, David, that you're talking about is a big deal, especially for people who are trained to be extroverts. There's a lot of people who've been trained themselves to be extroverts and are uncomfortable with that sense of introspection. What do I really want? And again, that's one of the values for me and the fun things that I love of being that thinking partner for people, because they don't because they're paying me to either help them with their business coaching, with business or their life situations or whatever. They don't see it different. They see it differently. So me as a thinking partner, I can help them be more introspective. I can help them train themselves to notice and be more thoughtful and mindful with themselves. And I love that work. It's like not Nisargadatta, but Rumi and I forget the other guy, Sufi fellow who smuggles spirituality, the smuggling of transformation for me, the smuggling of this process where people become more connected and engaged with themselves. They learn like, oh my God, there's a me in here. I didn't even know. I was distracting myself from her because it was too scary or whatever that is, or it's just not what I'm supposed to be. So I love this work of smuggling life and love and the potentiality of our wholeness just through these conversations of saying, what do you want? And Marge goes, wow, great question. And we say all day long. I was taking a nap the other day, and I just sat down and I was lying down and I noticed all these thoughts. Like I'm looking shocked because I was shocked. Here's all these thoughts of I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this. It was fascinating to see. And it was like, oh my God, my mind won't stop with the want. And yet it's like, what do you want? It's like, I want calm. I want emptiness right now so that I can rest my mind. I want my mind to empty so that I can rest. And that's a practice that I do is I empty myself. It's like I've been busy with all this stuff and I just make a big hole. It's like a field and meadow and push everything to the side so that I can just rest in that emptiness. That's something that works for me. Is that practice. Like, what do I want right now? I want that emptiness. Okay, great. Check. We're done with all that stuff. The more that we can do that with ourselves, the more that we become more conscious and notice things. So does this make sense to you guys? You can do a thumbs up. I don't know if you can do thumbs up with these, or a yes or a whatever that says, yeah, this makes sense to me in terms of the pragmatics. Like, here's what you need to do what you say you want, to bring that about. While you're here, if you haven't already liked or subscribed to these lives and the videos I provide, it would be great for you to do that. I would love it because it tells me that what I'm offering is valuable to you. And also let me know what you'd like me to talk about if you want to, if there's specific things that you want, or if you want to think about. Thank you for the like that just showed up. If you want to think about what you want and get back to me, you can email me, or you can leave comments below, or however you want to connect with me to say, hey, talk about this. So we have a few minutes left. Marge says it's very helpful. Thanks, Marge. What's the big takeaways for you that are still here? What are the big takeaways for you from what you've heard me say? If you would share some of those, that would be great. I'm looking at my list, my notes, so I can make sure that I've covered pretty much everything that I've wanted to cover. One of the things that I did a long time ago, let's see, David says, okay, that sounds good. Would it be like a repair manual in the glove box of one's car? It's true learning value comes when doing the repair. Therefore, knowledge is not the reading, but applying. Man, David, I want to give you a hug. I think you're in Australia, but just know I'm sending you a big hug because I love the way that you bring this so clearly. It's not the knowledge. It's you can look at the repair manual in your car, but you actually got to do something with that. You have to apply what you've been reading. And so many people are not, that's scary to apply because it means having a true personal experience, a direct experience. And most of us are hiding out in our distractions, in avoidances, in our fears, and the reality that we think we should be. It's in controlling our life through the here's what I'm supposed to be, versus, okay, I'm going to have the experience of changing my tire, but I have to look at the manual. Here's what I got to do. First of all, do this, go outside, open the trunk, take out the stuff, all of those things. And it gets messy right away. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. I remember my daughter was visiting me. This was when we were in Mill Valley, and her car had a flat tire. And I said, I'll go down and show you how to change the tire. She goes, no, I'm calling AAA. It's like, you got to learn how to change your tire. She goes, no, I don't. I got AAA. And that's kind of how we are sometimes. It's like, I'm just going to pray, or I'm going to call AAA or call the whatever, and they're going to fix it. And I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to learn that. I don't have to be with the messiness of it. But at some point, we got to be with the messiness, because that's what happens. And I know, David, you brought that up last time or the time before, that sometimes life throws us those curveballs. They create flat tires. So it's like, okay, I actually gotta live a true experience with myself. I have to have the direct experience. And when we have those direct experiences, whether it's changing tires or washing dishes, we find that something happens. Oh my God, that was very cool. I can do it. There's a confidence, or there's a connection. There's something that happens. And that's what I want for everyone. That's what I want for everyone, is to have that connection. Because like, oh my God, that's awesome. I'm awesome. It's like Marge says, it's my superpower. Let's see. I was going to share with you that this was probably 6 years ago. The Course in Miracles has been a big contributor to me. I think it's even though there's a lot of words there, a lot of theories, but it's also a course in miracles. It's a manual. Do this and you will create miracles. And it's very highly intense and very challenging, but it's really helpful. It had some very simple rules. Know what you want. What kind of day do you want? State the kind of day you want. Number 2, know that the rule number 1 is make no decisions by yourself. Know that you're either looking at your higher self or you're looking at your lower self. You're going to look at the self that might take you into experiences that are beyond what you know, or there's fear. So number 1, know what you want. Number 2, make no decisions by yourself. We make decisions all the time about judgments. I can't do this, or I should do this, or that's going to hurt, or that's going to be scary. All those are judgments, and all those are decisions we've just made. And when we go, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to stay open. I'm not going to live by fear today. And there were other things like in that which I wrote down. And if you go on my website, I don't think I can get this to you otherwise, but I'll try to leave it in the descriptions below. But I made a list. It was called Pre-Flight Checklist. Here's what I need to do to fly. Make no decisions. Know that I lack nothing. This is a constant teaching, no matter what spiritual tradition you're in. Your fullness, your wholeness, your full potentiality. I lack nothing. So if I lack nothing, I need do nothing. There's nothing I need to do but enjoy my day. And that's brilliant. And in that, then, I know I will be told what to do. I have been told what to do continuously all of my life. So I wrote down what I knew, and that became a very pragmatic list of to-dos. And I highly suggest you do that for yourselves, is make a list of what works. What kind of day do I want? I make no decisions by myself. And when I do that, life is going to be great. And I lack nothing. So I need do nothing. I will be told what to do. And I'm always told what to do. That's what I want for you guys. That's that sense of connection with your wholeness and the wholeness of reality that I want for you. All right, we're going to get cut off in a couple of seconds. So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you again for being here. Next time we meet will be at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. For those of you who came late, we'll be meeting at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time instead of 5 p.m. Okay, 3:30. All right, blessings to you. Bye for now.